What's up guys, and welcome back to Motorcycles Off-Road. In this video I want to compare the XR150L to Yamaha's XT250. Now I've been looking at the 150L, I saw one in person, and I've been looking at specs and been trying to consider if this is a good motorcycle to buy for my use needs. Now context is important. This is not going to be me riding this motorcycle, this is going to be the first street legal dual sport for my daughter. Currently she rides a TTR 125 off-road, she rides a 150F off-road, so she should be familiar with the engine and how it's going to feel with the XR150L. But I want to see if that's actually a better motorcycle for its value than the XT250. And if you're anything like me, you like to see things in black and white in front of you, along with look at them in person. I used to own an XT225, very similar to the XT250, and also I had a 150F, which my daughter used to ride, very similar to the XR150L in a way. So let's compare and let's see which one of these is probably better for my situation. Now beyond that, as you know, if you've been following the channel, I did sell the Tenere 700, and actually I bought a new bike a couple days ago. And you guys want a chance to win a free t-shirt from Motorcycles Off-Road, all you have to do is guess what new bike this is from the 4 selections. I have it over on my Patreon. It's absolutely free to do. Just go there, cast your vote, and I will randomly pick with a random number generator 1 or 2 winners that guess the right motorcycle, and I will reach out to them and send them out free t-shirts, new t-shirts that we just had developed, made the art for. And while you're there, enjoy some of the other free content, etc. Alright, enough of that. Let's deep dive into XR150L. Now first let's look at the engine. The XR150L is 149cc air-cooled, and the XT250 is a 249cc air-cooled. Now the XR is actually a carbureted engine, which is interesting. They released a new motorcycle that's a carbureted engine in 2023. Now this motorcycle may have been other places in the world, but this is the first iteration we're seeing here in America and many other markets. Also, the XT250 is fuel injection. Some people don't like fuel injection. I think fuel injection is the way to go with current bike standards. Now, the claimed horsepower, the XR150L is 12.5 horsepower, and the XT250, depending on where you look, a lot of the claims are 17 to 19 horsepower, both of which are low horsepower, but of course you have to make the XT250 be the winner in this bracket. When it comes down to torque, 8.8 foot-pounds of torque for the XR150, 14 foot-pounds for the XT. So of course the XT has 100 more cc's, so it produces more horsepower and torque. Now let's go into something a little more interesting. Both of these motorcycles have 5-speed transmissions. I would have liked to see a 6-speed gearbox, but I think there's more to the XR. I think it's basically, from me looking at it in person, it is the 150F motor from the dirt bike. And it's put right there, and I believe they just changed the gearing a little bit because the top speed of the XR150L is 70 miles an hour. Now the XT250, having 100 more cc's and 50% more horsepower nearly, is only 76 miles an hour, which is 122 kilometers. So it's very interesting to see that the XR can basically almost keep the same speed as a much bigger engine, 50% larger engine. So it makes me believe that I think the XR is not actually designed for off-road use, even though it's marketed as a dual sport, an economical dual sport. I think it's actually more of a scooter in my opinion. And the reason why is because for it to achieve such speeds with low horsepower, it has to be completely de-geared. So the standard 150F would maybe let me go 55 miles an hour. So to achieve this extra miles per hour, you're going to have to change the teeth on the rear sprocket, taking away a lot of rear wheel torque when it comes to putting the torque to the ground, but adding overall top speed. Now let's talk about the dash. This is kind of a step back. The XR150L dash is analog, whereas the XT250 is actually a digital dash. I mean, there's not a lot of bells and whistles here, but it is a digital dash, and that is nice to see. And that is from, I believe, the 2013 on. Next, seat height. So seat height is going to be an important thing because we're talking about a person that's riding that's 5'4". So the inseam's going to be lower, so for people that are, shorter, both of these bikes could be an interesting motorcycle for you. Now, the seat height of the XR150L is 32.8 inches, or 833 millimeters. And the seat height of the XT250 is 31.9 inches or 810 millimeters. So interestingly enough, the XT250 has a lower seat height, but yet it has a bigger tire size. So the XR is basically a big wheel 150 sporting a 19-inch front and a 17-inch rear, whereas the XT250 is a true dual sport with a 21-inch front tire and an 18-inch rear. Now, of course, those size of rims also lead to a difference in overall ground clearance, whereas the ground clearance of the XR is only 9.5 inches and the XT250 is 11.2 inches. Next, I want to briefly go over suspension, because one thing I did notice by seeing the XR in person is it had very, very small fork tubes. And the front fork tube of the XR is only 31 millimeters and it gives you 7.1 inches of travel, whereas the front forks on the XT is 35 millimeters with 8.9 inches of travel. And then the rear suspension of the XR is 5.9 inches of travel, where the XT250 is 7.1 inches of travel. So it's interesting, you get a lot more travel out of the XT250. Now here's where the XR is going to start to shine when we start to talk about fuel capacity. Now the fuel capacity of the XR is 2.8 gallons and the XT is only 2.2 gallons. Now that's actually not too bad, being the XT still gets pretty good gas mileage. But when you look at the fuel economy of the XR, you're looking at 124 miles per gallon versus the XT's 76. So just to put that in perspective, on one full tank of gas, you're going about double the distance on the XR150, which further reinforces the point that I think this motorcycle is made for light travel around towns, smaller areas, and stuff like that. Not really like an off-road dual sport. Then when you start to look at the wet weight of the XR150L is 282 pounds, and the XT250 is only roughly like 10 pounds more. That does come with, okay, you know, the XR does have a little bit more fuel at the 2.8 gallons, but this is a very heavy machine for what it is. You know, if you think about it, there's full-size 500cc KTMs that are coming in 50 pounds less than this motorcycle. And yes, granted, that's like an apples to oranges comparison, but just to think about that, a lot of these cheap parts that they're putting on this XR150L is making it much more heavy. And that's where you're seeing this combined heavy weight for such a small motorcycle. If the goal was to make this motorcycle light, you really could. You could get this motorcycle around 200 pounds. But, you know, steel wheels and stuff like that are really pumping up the weight. Now here's the big thing. The XR150L only cost off the lot $2,971. The XT250 costs $5,299 off the lot. So the XT250 doesn't cost double, but that's an increase of like 70% in price. Now I did put an asterisk to that price because the big thing is, at the MSRP and out the door and the shipping and freight, you're going to end up paying $3,500 to $3,600 American here in America to buy the XR150. Question is, can you find a not beaten XT250 for $3,500-$3,600? And the answer is absolutely yes. It will be, you know, a couple years older, but it's not that new feeling coming off the lot. So comparing these two motorcycles together and looking at the specs right in front of me in black and white, my conclusion is that I do not think the XR150L is a dual sport, nor do I think it's a motorcycle to add to my fleet personally. I feel like this is a motorcycle that somebody's going to want just to drive around very easily, just to have fun, and it'll do all those things. And in fact, you know, people do that with Groms and other motorcycles, and if you and your buddies all got together and buy this thing, it would be really fun. And actually, it's kind of funny to think about that you might actually be faster riding a TW200 than you are the 150L. I mean, yeah, the 150L has a higher top speed, but the TW200 might actually get there quicker and be more unique and more fun, which I've just done a whole video review on that motorcycle if you're interested in that one. I didn't want to throw it in this mix. And another good contender that I was thinking was like a KLX 230S, like the shorter version of that motorcycle. And I think that's around a 33-inch seat height, so it's pretty much a contender, a couple inches taller than the XT250. But comparing these two motorcycles, I think ultimately I should keep my search up for the XT250. Now, as I said, I did buy a new motorcycle, and I do have a new motorcycle to show you guys soon. I want you guys to go guess what it is. The link for the Patreon is in the first comment below, and cast your vote, and I'll be giving out some free shirts. So anyway, I know this was kind of like a talking head video, and I don't have either of these motorcycles right now to show you, but I did want to put these specs on paper so you guys could see it the same way that I see it. Well, thanks for watching. My name is Andrew, and this is Motorcycles Off-Road. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Thanks, guys.